The Galactic Council's classification guide listed the Zixithar as apex predators of the known universe, which really should have been their first clue that the universe had a sense of humor. These towering reptiloids with their iridescent scales and retractable claws spent roughly 80% of their time bragging about their hunting prowess, and the other 20% failing to live up to their own hype. Supreme Hunter Kexaval stood on the bridge of the Predator's Glory, their most advanced hunting vessel, admiring his reflection in the polished control panel. His ceremonial hunting garb sparkled with trophies from 100 worlds, which, if anyone bothered to count, was actually closer to 12, but who's counting? Certainly not the Zixithar. Supreme Hunter, First Scout Nixon called out, his voice carrying that distinctive mix of bootlicking and genuine excitement that had become the unofficial language of their species. We've detected a new world in Sector 47B. Initial scans indicate, oh, this is delightful, primitive defenses and widespread biological signatures. Kexaval's secondary heart quickened with anticipation. The Zixithar had already subjugated most of the worthy prey species in their sector of space. Their last real challenge had been the morphs of Centauri Prime, which had turned out to be nothing more than slightly aggressive space algae with good PR. "Show me," he commanded, striking what he believed to be an intimidating pose. The crew politely ignored the fact that it made him look like a constipated peacock. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a blue-green marble suspended in space. Primitive satellites orbited the planet like mechanical dandruff, and the occasional burst of radio waves suggested a species just beginning to reach for the stars. "Analyzing their defensive capabilities now," Second Scout Vexetra announced, her claws dancing across the control panel. "They appear to have nuclear capabilities, but nothing that could penetrate our shields. Their most advanced weapons are chemically propelled projectiles, and are these readings correct? They still use combustion engines." The bridge erupted in laughter, the sound reminiscent of a bag of angry cats being dragged across a cheese grater. "What do we know about the dominant species?" Kexaval asked, already imagining how their skulls would look mounted on his trophy wall. He had a spot picked out right between the pseudo-intelligent crystal formation from Rigel 4 and what he claimed was a Vorlon war mask, but was actually a decorative dinner plate. "Bipedal mammals," Nixon reported, scrolling through the data. "Soft-skinned, no natural armor. They've spread across their entire planet but maintain relatively primitive dwelling structures. They appear to be omnivorous, but their physical capabilities suggest they're primarily prey species." Kexaval's mouth split into what he thought was a menacing grin, but actually made him look like he'd just bitten into something sour. "Perfect. Prepare the hunting party. We'll start with their most remote regions, somewhere cold. It's been too long since we had a proper challenge." The crew burst into another round of laughter. Their last proper challenge had been a species of sentient clouds that turned out to be weather patterns with unusually good timing. As the Predator's Glory moved into a stealth orbit, none of the Zixithar noticed the small detail their scans had missed. In their eagerness to classify humans as prey, they had overlooked the countless monuments to human persistence, the museums filled with prehistoric spears, the cave paintings showing coordinated hunts, the entire sections of their cultures dedicated to the art of tracking, waiting, and bringing down creatures larger and stronger than themselves. But they would learn. Oh, how they would learn. The hunting party began their preparations, checking their plasma weapons and environmental suits, completely unaware that they were about to become part of a very different kind of hunting story, one that would be told in hushed whispers across the galaxy for generations to come. And somewhere on the planet below, in the vast wilderness of Alaska, a group of humans were going about their daily routines, blissfully unaware that they were about to teach an advanced alien species why humans had never been prey. The Zixithar hunting party materialized in what their scanners claimed was optimal hunting terrain. This turned out to be the middle of the Alaskan wilderness during what locals would call weather that would make a polar bear wear mittens. "Ah, perfect conditions," Commander Rekthar declared through chattering teeth, his environmental suit already struggling with the -40-degree temperature. "The prey won't expect apex predators in this frozen wasteland." Behind him, Junior Hunter Mexfi muttered under his breath, maybe because any sensible apex predator would be hibernating somewhere warm. A swift tail whip from his superior silenced any further commentary on their choice of landing zone. About 15 miles away, at the Last Chance Lodge and Guide Service, veteran wilderness guide Jack Thompson was doing what he did best, telling increasingly improbable stories to his fellow guides while they waited out the storm. His latest tale involved 3 bears, a salmon, and what he swore was a very understanding park ranger. And that's when I told her. Jack's story was interrupted by lodge owner Marcus Chen bursting through the door, bringing with him a blast of Arctic air and an expression that suggested he'd either seen a ghost or had finally lost that ongoing argument with the generator. "You all need to see this," Marcus managed between heavy breaths. "The motion sensors picked up something big out by Razor Ridge, and unless Moose learned to walk on 2 legs and started glowing in the dark, we've got a situation." Back at the landing site, the Zixthar hunting party was discovering several important facts about Earth that their initial scans had somehow missed. First, snow was cold. Second, snow was wet. And third, their advanced heating systems were about as effective as a chocolate teapot in this environment. "The tracking beacon shows potential prey gathering in a structure approximately 15 kilometers from our position," Rekthar announced, squinting at his malfunctioning equipment. "We'll approach under stealth cover and who's making that noise?" The noise was Junior Hunter Laxavir's teeth chattering so hard they were broadcasting on 3 different frequencies. The Zixithar might have been apex predators, but their homeworld had all the climate variation of a warm bath. Meanwhile, the guides at Last Chance Lodge were gearing up. Along with Jack and Marcus, there was Anna Rodriguez, their best tracker, and the only person who'd ever out-hunted Jack in the annual guide competition. Rounding out the team was Kai Patel, a former Special Forces operator who'd traded in his combat boots for a guide's license but hadn't traded away any of his skills. "Could be Russian military," Kai suggested, checking his rifle while the others gathered supplies. "They've been testing some weird stuff lately." "Since when do the Russians glow purple?" Marcus countered, showing them the grainy footage from the motion sensors. The image showed tall, distinctly non-human figures moving through the snow, with all the grace of drunk flamingos trying to ice skate. "Well," Jack said, shouldering his pack, "whatever they are, they picked the wrong week to visit. Storms coming in, temperatures dropping, and they're heading straight for the Thompson Traverse." Anna grinned, already lacing up her boots. "You mean that maze of ice caves and narrow valleys that even the local wolves avoid?" "The very same," Jack confirmed. "And if they're not careful, they're going to learn why we call it the Widowmaker." The Zixthar, meanwhile, were executing what they believed to be a masterful hunting strategy. This mostly involved stumbling through thigh-deep snow while their equipment slowly froze and their superiority complex took its first real hits. "According to our intelligence," Rekthar announced to his shivering team, "these humans are soft-skinned gatherers who rely on primitive tools. This should be a simple hunt, in and out before their planetary rotation completes." As if nature itself wanted to mock these words, the wind picked up, bringing with it the first flurries of what would become the worst blizzard in recent memory. The Zixthar's advanced technology began failing one system at a time, their communication with the ship deteriorating into static. And in the growing storm, 4 humans moved like shadows through their home terrain, already working out exactly what they were dealing with. They'd spent their lives in this wilderness, learning its moods and mysteries. They knew every cave, every ridge, and every deadly drop hidden beneath the snow. The hunters were about to become the hunted, and they didn't even know it yet. The first sign that things weren't going according to plan came when Junior Hunter Laxavir noticed the tracks following their tracks. At first, he assumed his superior cold-addled brain was seeing double. Then he realized the new tracks weren't copies, they were human boot prints methodically shadowing the Zixithar's chaotic trail through the snow. "Commander Rekthar," he called out, trying to keep the panic from his voice, "I believe we're being followed." The last word came out as a squeak because at that exact moment, a carefully aimed snowball hit him square in the back of the head. The hunting party spun around, plasma weapons raised, only to find empty wilderness staring back at them. "Impossible," Rekthar declared, though his secondary heart was doing an uncomfortable tap dance against his ribs. "We are the galaxy's apex predators. We do not get followed." A voice carried on the wind. "Hey buddy, might want to update your resume." 2 kilometers back, Jack and Anna were implementing what they called the tourist treatment, a technique usually reserved for overconfident out-of-state hunters who thought Alaska was just a slightly colder version of their backyard woods. "Look at these tracks," Anna mused, kneeling beside one of the alien footprints. "They're moving like they expect their technology to do all the work. No awareness of the terrain at all." "They went right through Hypothermia Hollow," Jack added, referring to a notorious valley where the temperature could drop 20 degrees in minutes. "Want to bet their fancy suits aren't rated for that." Meanwhile, Kai and Marcus had split off, moving through hidden paths in the ridgeline. They'd spent years memorizing these routes, knowledge that was about to prove extraordinarily inconvenient for certain alien visitors. The Zixathar's first real loss came 3 hours into their hunt. Junior hunter Mexfi stepped onto what looked like solid ground, only to crash through a carefully weakened snow bridge. His environmental suit, already struggling with the cold, gave up entirely as he plunged into the icy water below. "Help!" he shrieked, his cry cutting off as Kai and Marcus efficiently triggered a small avalanche that sealed the hole and any hope of an easy rescue. Did the prey just use the environment as a weapon?" Second hunter Vexator asked, her voice trembling. "That's not in any of our hunting manuals." "These creatures were supposed to be primitive," Rekthar roared, firing his plasma weapon at shadows. The beam simply created a cloud of steam that further reduced their visibility. "How are they doing this?" What the Zixthar failed to understand was that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to hunt things bigger, faster, and stronger than themselves. While the aliens relied on technology, humans had been practicing the art of persistence hunting since they first stood upright. Jack's voice crackled over their stolen radio frequency. "You folks might want to start moving. Storm's getting worse, and those fancy suits of yours don't look like they're doing too well." The aliens huddled closer together, their superior night vision rendered useless by the swirling snow. Their scanners, designed to track heat signatures, were going haywire from all the small fires the humans had strategically lit and abandoned around the perimeter. "This is beneath us," Rekthar declared, his mandibles quivering with cold and rage. "We are not prey to be herded." Anna's voice drifted through the darkness. "Could have fooled us. You're moving exactly where we want you to." The realization hit them like a frozen slap to the face. For the past 4 hours, they'd been steadily pushed toward higher ground, away from any natural shelter. Their path of retreat had been cut off by a series of small, precisely triggered avalanches. Second hunter Vexator disappeared next. One moment she was checking their rear flank, the next there was a muffled curse and the sound of cracking ice. By the time the others turned around, there was only a Vexator-shaped hole in a previously solid-looking snowbank. "Impossible," Laxavir whispered, his thermal vision showing him absolutely nothing useful through the storm. Their planet's database said they were persistence predators, but it said they used primitive projectile weapons and brute force. Yeah, Kai's voice came from somewhere above them. "We use those too, but why waste ammunition when Mother Nature's doing all the heavy lifting?" The remaining Zixathar hunters found themselves in an alien situation, being systematically taken apart by prey species using nothing more advanced than knowledge, patience, and an intimate understanding of their environment. As if to punctuate their deteriorating situation, one of their plasma rifles chose that moment to freeze solid and shatter. The sound echoed through the valley like breaking glass, followed by what suspiciously sounded like human laughter. "Command ship," Rekthar tried again to contact their vessel. "We require immediate extraction. The prey, the humans, we're not, having trouble with the words there, friend?" Jack's voice was almost sympathetic. "Try, we messed up. It's a classic that works in most situations." The humans continued their methodical pursuit, using techniques perfected over thousands of years of hunting. They didn't need to outfight the aliens. They just needed to outlast them. Every hour brought more equipment failures, more confusion, and more fear to the supposedly superior hunting party. As the storm intensified and their numbers dwindled, the remaining Zixathar were forced to accept an uncomfortable truth. Somewhere in their species' history of conquest, they'd forgotten what it truly meant to be hunters. They'd replaced instinct with technology, skill with weapons, and respect for their environment with arrogance. And now, in the frozen wasteland of Alaska, they were learning these lessons the hard way. The thing about fear is that it's an excellent teacher, though the Zixthar were turning out to be rather reluctant students. Commander Rekthar and his two remaining hunters had taken refuge in what they thought was a defensible position, a cave in the mountainside. What they didn't know was that this particular cave was known locally as Echo Canyon, and the humans were about to demonstrate why. "Did you hear that?" Laxvir whispered, his scales rattling like loose change in a dryer. "Hear what?" Rekthar snapped, then froze as a sound drifted through the cave system. It might have been the wind, it might have been human laughter, it might have been their own paranoia, reaching previously undiscovered heights. "Ship command, respond." Third Hunter Yexetal was practically hugging their communication device. "Priority override, Apex Predator Protocol." The only response was static, punctuated by what sounded suspiciously like the chorus of "Another One Bites the Dust." From somewhere in the darkness came Marcus's voice. "You know what's really interesting about these caves?" The alien spun around, plasma weapons pointed in 3 different directions. The acoustics, Anna's voice answered from the opposite direction. "The multiple exits," Kai's voice added from somewhere above them. "The fact that sound travels faster than scared aliens," Jack concluded from yet another angle. Rekthar fired his weapon at random, creating spectacular light shows but hitting nothing but rock. Each blast illuminated the cave for a split second, revealing absolutely no humans, but somehow making the shadows even more menacing. "This is psychological warfare," Yexetal declared, stating the obvious with all the confidence of someone discovering water is wet. "No," Laxavir corrected, his voice shaking. "This is humans playing with their food." The words had barely left his mouth when a small object bounced into their midst. The aliens leapt back, expecting an explosive. Instead, it was a can of soup. The label read, "Campbell's Chicken Noodle," with a handwritten note attached. "You guys look like you could use a warm meal." "They're mocking us," Rekthar growled, kicking the can away. It rolled into the darkness, its journey punctuated by metallic echoes that sounded impossibly like laughter. Their ship's automated log would later record the following observations, though no one was receiving them. Hour 6, hunting party shows signs of extreme stress. Commander Rekthar has started jumping at his own shadow. Hour 7, junior hunter Laxavir claims humans are shapeshifters. Evidence cited. That rock looked at me funny. Hour 8, third hunter Yextal attempting to negotiate with what appears to be a particularly judgmental-looking pine tree. The humans, meanwhile, were conducting a masterclass in guerrilla warfare. They'd distributed hand warmers around the cave entrances, completely confusing the aliens' thermal imaging. Every few minutes they'd toss small rocks from different directions, keeping the Zixathar spinning like malfunctioning compass needles. "Remember that summer tourist who thought he could outrun a moose?" Anna asked conversationally, her voice bouncing off the cave walls. "Yeah," Jack replied from somewhere else, kept insisting his fancy running shoes made him faster than wildlife, right up until the moose decided to test that theory. "At least the moose was quick about it," Kai chimed in. "We're taking our time. Very unprofessional of us." "Professional?" Marcus's laugh echoed through the cave system. "I'm still trying to figure out if we should bill this as a guided tour or pest control." The aliens huddled closer together, their supposedly superior night vision proving about as useful as sunscreen in a snowstorm. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound carried threat, and their proud hunting heritage was rapidly being replaced by a newfound appreciation for prey species perspective. "Command ship," Rekthar tried one last time, his voice cracking. "Emergency Protocol 7903, we are experiencing technical difficulties." A response finally crackled through. "This is Earth Radio, taking your requests all night long. Next up, Running Scared by Roy Orbison." Yexetal lost it first. "They've hacked our communications," he shrieked, throwing the device against the wall. "They've probably hacked our minds. Can they hack minds? Why didn't we scan for mind-hacking capabilities?" "Pull yourself together," Rekthar commanded, though he was seriously considering the mind-hacking theory himself. "We are the galaxy's apex predators. We are the terror of 1,000 worlds. We are—" Completely surrounded, Jack's voice finished for him, and running out of options faster than a one-legged man in a kickboxing competition. The aliens' morale, already hanging by a thread, finally snapped like a frozen rubber band. Laxavir began writing his memoirs on the cave wall with a partially frozen plasma pistol. Yexetal was constructing elaborate conspiracy theories about how Earth was actually a trap planet designed by their ancient enemies. And Rekthar, proud Commander Rekthar, was seriously considering whether a career change to space accounting might have been the better choice. As if to punctuate their psychological collapse, a series of snowballs launched from multiple directions splattered against their suits, each one containing a small note. The notes read, in cheerfully neat handwriting, "Welcome to Earth. Hope you're enjoying your stay. P.S. You might want to decide on surrender terms before your suits completely freeze." The Zixathar, self-proclaimed apex predators of the galaxy, found themselves experiencing something entirely new, the dawning realization that perhaps, just perhaps, they weren't as apex as they'd thought. Commander Rekthar had a moment of clarity while watching his last functioning plasma rifle transform into an elaborate ice sculpture. The humans hadn't just been hunting them. They'd been giving them an education in humility, with practical demonstrations and everything. "Look at this," Yextal whispered, pointing at what appeared to be a simple fallen tree across their escape route. "They've blocked our path with primitive vegetation." "Wait," Laxavir called out, but too late. Yextal's foot hit the trigger wire, and suddenly the primitive vegetation transformed into a remarkably efficient log launcher. The third hunter got a brief, unexpected flying lesson before landing face first in a snowbank 20 feet away. "They're making weapons out of trees now," Laxavir whimpered. "Who makes weapons out of trees?" "The same species that looked at a mammoth and decided to poke it with a sharp stick until it died." Anna's voice drifted from somewhere in the wilderness. "We're basically the galaxy's most persistent improvisers." The remaining aliens watched in horror as their environment transformed into a showcase of human tool use. Every route they tried had been modified, adapted, or straight-up weaponized. A frozen waterfall turned out to be manually redirected to ice over their backup escape path. A promising sheltered valley was actually a handcrafted wind tunnel that nearly froze their suits solid. "Emergency broadcast to all Zixathar vessels." Rekthar tried one last time, voice cracking. "This is a Class 1 warning about planet Earth. The humans are not what they seem. They're not primitive, they're not predictable, and they definitely know how to use basic physics in deeply disturbing ways." The only response was static, followed by what sounded suspiciously like the theme from Jaws being played on a harmonica. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" Jack's voice carried through the storm. "You assumed technology equals advancement, but we humans, we never forgot our roots." As if to demonstrate this point, a series of simple rope snares, technology that hadn't changed much since the Stone Age, suddenly sprang up around them, catching Yexital by his ankles and leaving him dangling like a very confused piñata. "Look at this craftsmanship," Kai commented appreciatively, his voice seemingly right behind them, though when they turned, no one was there. "Simple materials, reliable mechanism, excellent placement. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." The aliens' supposedly superior technology continued to fail spectacularly. Their environmental suits, designed for the vacuum of space, were losing to good old-fashioned cold. Their advanced sensors couldn't distinguish between actual humans and the dozens of heat-packed decoys scattered through the trees. "Perhaps," Laxavir suggested, trying to help a now frozen solid Yextal, "we should consider a strategic reassessment of our species' classification of humans." "You mean admit we were wrong?" Rekthar scoffed, though the effect was somewhat undermined by his chattering teeth. "That these primitive mammals might actually be superior predators? I was thinking more along the lines of run away and never come back, but sure, let's go with your thing." A new sound cut through the wind, the mechanical whir of their ship's rescue pod responding to their distress signal. For one brief, glorious moment, the aliens felt hope. Then they saw what the humans had been busy doing while keeping them distracted. The entire landing zone had been transformed into what Marcus proudly called Home Alone Alaska Edition. Simple machines, basic physics, and an intimate knowledge of the environment had turned their only escape route into a gauntlet of improvised challenges that would have made Rube Goldberg proud. "Watch that first step," Anna called out helpfully as Rekthar triggered a cascade of events involving snow, gravity, and several strategically placed logs. "And the second step," Jack added as another trap sprung. "Actually, you might want to watch all the steps," Kai concluded as their last attempt at calling reinforcements ended, with their emergency beacon becoming part of what the humans called a very elaborate wind chime. The Zixathar, proud hunters of 1,000 worlds, dozen worlds, but who's counting, found themselves huddled behind a rock. watching their last hope of rescue disappear under an avalanche triggered by nothing more complex than a well-placed lever and the weight of accumulated snow. "Did you know," Marcus lectured from his hidden position, "that humans invented the lever, the wheel, and the wedge before we even figured out writing? We were making complex machines before we could document how they worked. Imagine what we've learned since then." As if to emphasize his point, their final communication device chose that moment to emit a death rattle and transform into what could charitably be described as a very expensive paperweight. "I think," Laxavir said slowly, watching their last functional piece of technology succumb to the cold, "that perhaps our species should update its hunting manuals, specifically the chapter about assessing potential prey species. Maybe add a section about checking if the prey has opposable thumbs and a concerning enthusiasm for creative problem-solving. Add a note about their ability to cooperate," Yexatal added from his upside-down position, "and their disturbing tendency to laugh while hunting. Who laughs while hunting? It's very unprofessional." Rekthar, once proud commander of the galaxy's most feared hunting species, looked at his failed mission, his trapped companions, and the increasingly elaborate network of primitive but effective hunting techniques surrounding them. He came to a conclusion that would later be recorded in Zixathar history as the Great Humbling. "Perhaps," he admitted, watching another simple but devastating trap spring into action, "we should have spent less time claiming to be apex predators and more time studying what that actually means." As the storm finally began to clear, Commander Rekthar and his two remaining hunters found themselves in what the humans called a parley position, which was a polite way of saying they were completely surrounded with no options left except conversation. The four humans emerged from their hiding spots looking frustratingly comfortable in the brutal cold. Jack casually leaned against a tree, sipping from a thermos of hot coffee. Anna sat on a nearby log, cleaning her unused rifle. Kai stood with his arms crossed, looking like he'd just finished a pleasant morning walk. Marcus was actually making snow angels. "So," Jack said, offering the thermos to the shivering aliens, "should we talk about how this whole humans are prey theory worked out for you?" Rekthar, his proud posture somewhat undermined by his violently chattering mandibles, tried to maintain some dignity. You cheated. Used primitive tactics. Refused to engage in proper hunting protocols." "Proper hunting protocols," Anna laughed, the sound echoing off the surrounding mountains. "Like what? Standing still while you shoot us with plasma rifles? Sorry, but we learned better tactics from the rabbits we hunt. Speaking of which, want to know how many bullets we actually used during this entire encounter?" 17 plasma charges, Yexatal reported quickly. 3 energy nets and 1 experimental matter disruptor. 0, Kai responded with a grin. "We haven't fired a single shot, didn't need to. Mother Nature and basic physics did all the heavy lifting." The aliens stared in disbelief at their primitive opponents. Laxavir was the first to break, throwing his frozen weapon into the snow. "How? Just how? Our technology is centuries ahead of yours." Marcus stopped making snow angels long enough to answer. "You know what makes humans apex predators? It's not our weapons or our strength. It's this." He tapped his head. "We look at a problem and see solutions everywhere. A tree isn't just a tree, it's shelter, a weapon, a tool, or a trap. The cold isn't just an obstacle, it's an ally if you know how to use it. We've spent our entire history being smaller, slower, and weaker than our prey," Jack added. "So we learned to be smarter, to work together, to use everything around us. That's what makes us dangerous. Not our technology, but our ability to adapt and overcome." Rekthar looked at his frozen equipment, his trapped companions, and the simple but devastating array of tools and traps surrounding them. For the first time in his hunting career, he did something unprecedented. He laughed. "The galaxy," he declared, still chuckling, "is not going to believe this report." "Oh, they'll believe it," Anna assured him, "especially the part about how we let you go." "Let us go?" "Of course," Jack confirmed, extending a hand. "On one condition, you spread the word. Let everyone know that Earth isn't a hunting ground, it's a preserve, and we're not the prey, we're the gamekeepers." As they helped the aliens back to their rescue pod, after disarming a few dozen remaining traps, Laxavir turned to his commander. "Sir, next time we want to prove our hunting prowess." "Yes, let's stick to hunting space algae." 2 weeks after the Alaska incident, the Galactic Council received an urgent update to their classification guide. The Zixithar, historically stingy with praise for other species, had submitted a new entry, Humans, Terra Earth, approach with extreme caution. Classification, apex predators with characteristics previously unknown to science. Notable traits, disturbing ability to weaponize anything including weather, tendency to laugh while hunting, capable of turning trees into siege weapons, probably smarter than they're letting on. Threat level, yes. Recommended action, leave them alone. Seriously, just don't. The report was accompanied by several hours of surveillance footage, most of which featured highly trained Zixithar warriors being outsmarted by what appeared to be sticks, stones, and snow. The clips became an instant hit at the Galactic Council's annual holiday party. Commander Rekthar, now teaching advanced humility at the Zixithar Hunting Academy, had even started ending his lectures with a human saying, "Work smarter, not harder." Though he still jumped whenever someone mentioned Alaska, the warning spread quickly through space-faring societies. Earth was officially designated as a look but don't touch planet, with a specific note about their creative problem-solving capabilities and concerning enthusiasm for improvised weapons. And in Alaska, 4 guides added some unique trophies to the Last Chance Lodge's wall, several pieces of frozen alien technology that made excellent conversation pieces. Though they had to keep explaining to visitors that, no, that wasn't a fancy modern art ice sculpture, it was actually a plasma rifle. The lodge also updated its brochure with a new slogan, Last Chance Lodge and Guide Service, serving satisfied customers across the galaxy, whether they meant to be customers or not. Above Earth, passing alien ships would look down at the blue-green planet and shudder, remembering the now famous last transmission from the Zixithar hunting party. Note to all hunters, beware of humans. They don't need fancy weapons. They'll get you with a stick and a smile, and somehow, that's worse.